President of the Community Wealth Building Commission, held on the 12th of March 2024. We have Councillor Allison, Councillor Brown. I'll just check if we have Councillor Cooper. No, we don't have Councillor Cooper. We have Councillor Fagan. We have apologies from Councillor Robb. We have Councillor Ross. We have apologies from Councillor Walker. We have Paul Manning. We have Jackie Taylor. We don't have Suman Sengupta. We have apologies from Jan Gardner. We have Josephine Pravin Kumar here. We don't have Hisashi. Oh, we do. We have him online. Thank you. We have Stephen Sweeney, and I'm just checking if we have Thomas Adamson. No, we don't have Thomas. We also have a number of other officers attending, Chair, and with that I'll hand you back for today's business.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I come now to item 1, which are declarations of interest? Can I ask if anyone wants to indicate a declaration of interest? Can you do so now? There not been any declarations of interest. Can I move to item 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting? Are there any issues anyone wishes to raise under the minutes of the previous meeting? Could you indicate now? And if not, can I ask that we approve that as a correct record? Are we agreed? I'll take it that we're agreed, because nobody has indicated otherwise. Okay. Can we come then to item 3, which is the first of our items of, for consideration. And this is a report from Hub South West and on social impact and community wealth building in South Lanarkshire. I'm going to invite Jonathan Reid to speak in just a moment. He'll give a brief introduction before handing over to Michael Ross, Joseph Drugan, and also Sean Sands. Okay, so Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So the purpose of this report then is to provide an overview of the community benefits delivered through South Lanarkshire Council's partnership with Hub South West across a range of areas, including affordable housing, education and health investment projects right across South Lanarkshire. Recommendations are set out in section 2, and namely that the content of the presentation, the report and the presentation be noted, and that future opportunities to expand social value and community benefits of investment projects be considered by membership organisations of the Commission as well. Section 3 sets out the background to this, with the report last June, providing a flavour of some of the community benefits gained through the Affordable Housing Supply Programme and other investment projects led by the Council, and the alignment between that and the land and assets pillar of the current South Lanarkshire Community Wealth Building Strategy. The report highlighted that through the likes of the Affordable Housing Supply Programme and a range of other capital investment projects, that the Council would continue to maximise the community benefits gained through these, with further updates and provided to the Commission, and we're back today with a further update on that, with a particular focus on the work that we're taking in partnership with Hub South West. As the Chair says, I'm pleased to say we're joined by Michael, Sean and Joseph from Hub South West today, who are going to provide a bit of detail about some of the projects they've been involved with, plus some of the progress that we've made together in partnership with the Council. We'll do that just now.
Good afternoon, everybody. As I said, I'm Michael Ross, Chief Executive of Hub South West, and I'm joined by Joe Drugan, who's our Community Wealth Building and Social Value Manager, and Sean Sands, who's our Development Director. And we're here to talk to you about community wealth building and what we've managed to achieve for South Lanarkshire Council to date. We've got some slides that we're going to share with you now, so I'll pause while that happens. Some technical challenges which we're diverting from here. I'm actually well aware that we've shared these slides ahead of today equally to the members, so there we go. Excellent, thank you, Sean. Sean's also responsible for all technology in in the organisation. So we'll keep this fairly brief. I believe we're going to try and go for 20 minutes to try and subsect it, and then we'll take your guidance on any questions that we're keen to go through. Okay, I was keen to give you a brief overview of what Hub South West actually was before going into our commitment to community wealth building within South Lanarkshire and what partnership strategies we have that we can actually take this forward on. So I'll be brief and we can take any questions at the end in that regard. So Hub South West was ultimately set up by the Scottish Government and all the local authorities, blue lights and health boards to come together and procure public sector projects in a manner that enables cost efficiency, value for money, high quality, sustainability, and ultimately, more specific to this, creates local jobs, local apprenticeships, and recirculates spend with local SMEs within the area. There's slides. I'm not going to go through every single slide. I'm just going to pick out some key points from them to stimulate some discussion afterwards. The Scotland was effectively split up into 5 territories over a decade ago. We represent the Orange Territory, which covers all of Ayrshire, Lanarkshire and Dumfries and Galloway. And we do speak to our peers within West, East Central, North and South East. In fact, I was in with them this morning to talk about advancing some strategies we have on our community wealth building front. So we're set up as a 20-year partnership, ultimately, and owned by the Scottish Futures Trust participants and the private sector in that regard. Our participants are listed here, of which you'll see from the Lanarkshire area. We've got South Lanarkshire, North Lanarkshire, NHS Lanarkshire, and also the blue lights in the form of Police Scotland, Strathclyde Fire Rescue, and the ambulance service. You've already heard my statement there of why we were set up in the first place. It was to ultimately bring things together and procure it in a manner that can harness the power of public sector procurement across a range of baselines. We've won over the last decade quite a sizable amount of accolades for our combined efforts. More recently getting a hat-trick at some quite substantial award celebrations. Our mission statement, really, for the focus of this, focuses solely around the creation of the local community benefiting from the projects we actually deliver. And that has spelled a very clean approach of what Joe's going to go through in relation to our community wealth building front from there. I'm not going to take you through all of these, but you've got them on the slide deck that you've got, but you can see it all revolving around partnership working. That's our key areas of focus. Value for money, quality, community wealth building, social value, skills and economic development, governance integrity, sustainability, and surrounding that is a range of forums we have, the Tertiary Partnering Board, of which you are part of, which helps sustain the sustainability strategy of which we deliver. We have a quality forum, a very successful economic development skills forum, which Joe's got some fantastic ideas about making more regional across South Lanarkshire. And we also do collaborate very well with the other hubs. And when we add ourselves up, it's over £5 billion worth of work over the last decade. So there's a lot of knowledge within retained teams that we can bring to our disposal on this. We ultimately do know that the unique selling points we have is the speed of procurement, the ability to gain value for money. We've got an office full of specialist commercial people that can ultimately input on projects to ensure a very robust process set by the Scottish Government on achieving value for money. We have a huge output on quality, sustainability, and more so for today, without taking any away, Joe will take you through the social value intent, which we'll go into very shortly. I think it was very key just to give you the output of what we've done just at Hub South West today. We've delivered £882 million worth of projects in the last decade, over 94 sites. We've got 150 million in construction, 250 million in development, and you'll see there that we've got a huge background in education, affordable housing, and healthcare at the beginning, where you can see the NHS Lanarkshire projects standing tall there. But we're also beginning to really get the supply chain ready for retrofit and looking at larger volumes of smaller scale community-led projects on high streets and regeneration, etc. So we're adjusting our setup to be able to deliver on them. We run a refresh every 3 years. It is a proper refresh where we go through a very detailed pre-qualification, which is agreed by the Tertiary Partnering Board, of which you've got a representative on. The output of that last year was that we have Tier 1A contractors in the form of Morrison, Spam, Morgan Sindall, Balfour Beatty and Kier. And we've also got Tier 1B contractors that really specialise in projects sub the £20 million mark in the form of CCG, Cruden, McTaggart's, Ashley, Ogilvy, Linear and Graham's from there. We've also got an availability to bring in anybody we need. But these people invest in our forums. And I've lost my slides. So these people invest in our quality forums, our community wealth building forums. They're actually with me tomorrow doing a STEM event at a range of colleges. I should also declare that I'm onboarding with a college within the territory of a non-exec director, so I'm beginning to spend more and more time trying to signal post people into that realm of what we're doing. While Sean plays with the slides there, the key, if you can just flick on to the next one. The key one is actually to pass over to Joe, and as we get the slides back up and running, Joe joined the organisation 6 months ago. I, previous to my current role as Chief Executive, was the Operations Director for 9 years, building a lot of these things you see up on the screen. And I saw a real good opportunity to bring somebody with a very high calibre to come in and place a lot of emphasis on ensuring that the power of the public sector and procurement truly realises local jobs, local apprenticeships and local SMEs winning work. Joe is about to take you through some of the key things we do, which we've refined over the last decade, but I'm very excited with the energy Joe's bringing, and we've got a lot of the Tier 1 contractors, the design teams, the supply chains behind us, really very on board and focused to ensure that we can actually deliver successful strategies from here. So I'm going to pass over to Joe now.
Thanks very much, Michael. Thank you, Chair. So it's nice to have a cheerleader, isn't it? Thank you very much, Michael. That was no pressure on me now. But well, thank you. I welcome the opportunity to speak to the Commission. As Michael said, I'm relatively new in post, having previously worked within the built environment with Balfour Beatty in a similar role. And engaging with the Commission is something that I've spoken to Michael about. It's been something that was quite central to my kind of early ambitions within Hub. As I'll go into explain a bit of detail in terms of how we tender our work and how our approach to community wealth building. It's very much, in my background as well, very much taking partnership work as a sort of central function and taking that forward to ensure that we are maximising the opportunities for all when we are tendering our work. So I thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. So I wanted to start off just by running the words of our chairman, Dr. William Mackey, who I'm sure many of you will have met or known. His role within Skills Development Scotland and Scottish Enterprise. When he references how our business has more than bricks and mortar and social value, community wealth building, economic development, prosperity for all, developing our supply chains is really central to our business model. And I think when you see that from the top down, I think it reinforces the identity that we have across Hub as a model that really maximises social value and community wealth building and from the public procurement. So I just wanted to kind of lead off with that, just to give that impression that we really do kind of take this seriously from the top down. And our approach to supporting the community wealth building pillars is something that is really essential to our business model, essentially. So what we're keen to do today is really just going to take you through our approach to look at some of the examples whereby we have been able to deliver using the levers that we have in front of us as a procurement partner for local authorities to demonstrate what we have done, but I think more importantly, having recently come into the company, what we can do in future. So looking at where South Lanarkshire is at the moment and where we are just now, I think there's some really good synergies there, which we're really keen to maximise and get to work on. And we've already started some work already on that front with yourselves, and just kind of wanted to take you through some of those strands and give and also the opportunity there to ask any questions that you might have on our progress or approach and our future plans. But to begin with, just wanted to look at those 5 pillars. Now, obviously, I'm not going to try and teach my granny to suck eggs here and run you through them, but I wanted to look at our approach in terms of how we are addressing each of those 5 touch points. So initially, looking at the procurement side of things, looking from the spending angle, we as our procuring body, now having my previous Balfour Beatty hat on from the private sector, and you'll be aware as well from the procurement side of things that quite typically within a construction framework or the tendering process, when we talk about local, we talk about regional, that can be a 30-40 mile radius that doesn't necessarily always deliver for that local authority. Whereas with the Hub model, with our territory approach, when we say local, we do mean specifically within the South Lanarkshire area when we are tendering there. So when we have those levers at our disposal to work with yourselves. When we are putting an NPR come to us and then we put that out to our tier ones, we really can make sure that we are maximising local opportunities for the local communities. And then moving on to those local communities, and we move on to the workforce angle. So again, I won't go into too much detail here. We have circulated this with you already, and we're more than happy to, to take any questions or provide any further reports to you. But we just wanted to demonstrate our approach to, ensuring the well-being and the development of our workforce is something which we mandate through our supply chain. So we really try to lead by example on that front, obviously by being living wage employer and with a raft of well-being policies in place. We work with our contractors, we work with our procurement and with our supply chain to ensure that we're developing them and enabling them to deliver sustainable and a well-being focused workforce. And then moving on to the land and property side of things, when we look at the engagement with community groups we have throughout that procurement process, working together with yourself at the early stages to ensure that we're identifying opportunities within the existing territory, whereby we can then work with our contractors to ensure that we are delivering on those priorities for you. So when we are working through that tendering process, this is the time, as you'll know, but it's critical to identify the opportunities whereby we can look into the procurement side of things to ensure that our contractors are delivering on those areas. And then from looking at the finance side of things, probably one of our biggest draw in terms of the levers which we can pull to deliver community wealth building is through the delivery of work packages and developing a supply chain. So as you can see there, with nearly 250 work packages issued within South Lanarkshire to SMEs, totaling just shy of £100 million in value, there's a chunky amount of money there, a chunky amount of opportunity, whereby we've managed to ensure that gets retained within the territory, but obviously going forward we're keen to ensure that that develops further, and we don't just look at the financial side of things, we look at development as well of the supply chains. So when we look at that, building the generative economy, we move on to the final pillar, our build programmes and our hub clubs are programmes which we use to develop our supply chain and ensure that our supply chain are being kept up to date with the modern methods of construction, the key issues that are facing our supply chains at the moment, looking at the pipeline in terms of being net zero ready, and looking at the retrofit agenda, Scottish Government net zero. For a lot of these smaller suppliers, this can be quite scary, so we take that approach to ensure that we are holding a hand almost through that process and engaging them, linking them up with yourselves, with the wider community, to ensure that we're sharing that pool of best practice and we're supporting our suppliers to develop, to ensure that they're ready to build for your priorities. So as you can see, I do tend to go on, so I shall kind of move through the slides. I'm conscious of everybody's time, but I just wanted to ensure that we are linked with South Lanarkshire already on working with you in terms of the procurement process. So I understand you're on a bit of a journey just now in terms of looking at the City Deal model, which we've been supporting Jen Fleming, who I have to say is really switched on and somebody we've really enjoyed working with so far. And we're supporting each other to ensure that when we're mapping out these community benefits, which sometimes, as I'm sure you'll be aware from the procurement angle, can be fraught with various different reporting mechanisms. So we are really switched on to supporting South Lanarkshire Council with that, and again with the Senefits approach. So again, this is a new model which I understand you've recently undertaken. I've previous experience with Senefits myself, so we're working with Jen and her team there to ensure that everything we do, and when we work with our contractors, we're speaking the same language. As you know, there can be many different functionalities and portals which we use here, so we have experience of all of these. We bring that to the table to ensure that we are supporting yourselves as well, and ensuring that anything that we do commit to with our contractors is joined up to your way of speaking and your way of recording and measuring these outcomes. So a little kind of breakdown of some of the suppliers which we have supported and we engaged with in previous contracts in South Lanarkshire. As you can see, I mentioned earlier on, just to give that bit of an overview, excuse me, of the value of the work packages and the breadth of SMEs and kind of larger companies as well. But the vast majority of the supply chain who we support within South Lanarkshire are from that SME ecosystem, and you can see there from the work packages and the value. When we're talking about the numbers and the levers that we have to pull, these are really where we can really demonstrate that kind of real economic growth and development and value to the authority. So when we spoke previously about that upskilling and that management of the supply chain and the development of the supply chain, this is our this is our main mechanism in order to achieve that, and it's something that we deliver in partnership with yourselves. We have done for a number of years now very successfully, and we've had some fantastic testimonials on that. We don't want to rest on our laurels as well. We're very keen to ensure that this remains current and it responds to the issues that are facing the industry at the moment, and preparing our supply chain, more importantly, for the net zero agenda, for the retrofit, and to ensure that we are linking up with yourselves to set out a programme which is going to ensure that it's addressing those key touch points which you need, which your contractors need from the supply chain, and obviously supporting them to develop their business as well by putting them in front of the tier 1 contractors and yourselves, and to expose them to further tendering opportunities. So we are currently in the recruitment phase just now for the next Build Lanarkshire programme, so and we understand I'm going to be back here, I think, in May for the final. So thank you very much to South Lanarkshire Council for supporting and providing the opportunity for us to host our final here. So like I said, very, very keen to ensure that we have that kind of close working relationship that benefits our supply chain, that benefits the contractors to get in front of yourselves and these tier 1s to expose them to more work. So just as I come to kind of wrap up towards the supply chain side of things, as Michael touched on earlier on, from that refresh perspective, when we're looking to develop our approach to supply chain development, we are working on a number of different workshops at the moment, which we'll be hosting in-house, again with our tier 1 contractors, to ensure that our wider supply chain are up to speed and are compliant with the various kind of touch points that you can see here. And again, this is not by any means an exhaustive list. This is something which we are developing. It's very much a live piece of work fed through their quality forums from elsewhere in the business and the development side of things, to ensure that everything that's coming to us from our tier 1s, that we're able to then feed that down to the supply chain, ensure that we're prepping them to make sure that they're fit for purpose and they're engaged and they're ready to meet the challenges that are coming down the line. And we have just a little short testimonial here, because I'm conscious it's myself talking, and I can I don't want to say I can sell snow to the Eskimos, but we wanted to make sure with a bit of authenticity here that this is the type of positive feedback we have seen from that supplier development programme. And I think the numbers speak for themselves when you look at the amount we've managed to retain within the local authority, but we just felt it would be worthwhile including some of the really kind of positive feedback that we, and yourselves as well, as we deliver the build programme in partnership with South Lanarkshire, does receive, and gives a bit of an overview in terms of our approach and how that is paying dividends for those suppliers there. And then on to just a very brief case study from a previous project which we delivered within the local authority in Jackton Primary School, to again, just to back up what we're saying and how our approach is paying off in terms of delivering social value outcomes and community wealth building. When we look at the areas which we direct our suppliers towards, it's very much aligned to the South Lanarkshire community plan. So looking at those areas of addressing child poverty by setting up a community fund to, which is going to address some of those kind of, it's never going to resolve, but we ensure that we do direct our suppliers to work towards those kind of key areas within the community, and reducing economic inequality by creating 86 weeks of employment for priority groups. Again, that's something which is critical to our business model, and we work very well with our contractors and the existing bodies such as Roots to Work South to ensure that we are engaging with the local, the experts and the providers in the area to really kind of address those key touch points. So again, this is something which has been done in the past. Again, as I said earlier on, I'm keen to ensure that what we do in the future is addressing the very real issues which are facing the communities across South Lanarkshire just now. But we just wanted to give you some insight into how we ensure that when we tender our work, it does align to the priorities of South Lanarkshire. And we look at the community plan, we look at the local needs analysis to ensure that what we're asking our contractors to do and working with them to deliver in partnership is going to address those key areas to be creating jobs, retaining local spend, and reducing inequality wherever we can. And that leads us just to my last slide, which gives a bit of a snapshot of some of those outcomes. I don't like to look at outcomes too much in terms of what the numbers there. I like to focus on the story behind that and what that means. And when you see these numbers here, yes, it's great and it always looks impressive on a slideshow, but the reality of that is you know, that's creating new jobs, that is reducing economic inequality, it's creating apprenticeship opportunities, it's developing supply chains and creating work experience placements for people from priority groups and helping them into employment. And you can see from the numbers there that that is money that's been retained within within South Lanarkshire, and that's something which we are really keen to build and develop on. So as I said, can't take any credit for this. This, you know, goes down to, you know, the people that are sitting either side of me and the contractors that have been out there delivering. But it gives an overview of where we've been. I hope I've explained how we want to take that forward in partnership with yourself to ensure that we're delivering even more in the future. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you back over to Michael.
There we go. No, that's excellent. Thank you, Joe. And hopefully you got just an eighth of Joe's enthusiasm for his job there. Huge amount of work goes in. This doesn't just happen when you tender works. It doesn't just automatically go to companies in South Lanarkshire. We do, for the last decade, a huge amount of work with our supply chain, our contractors, our SMEs to actually enable them to be skilled up to get the work and sustain having the work. And I'm laser focused on the fact that employment, there's a huge amount of opportunities with skills and employment from the SME base below the Tier 1 contractors, which you showed the logos of, and that's where a lot of our work is done from there. I'll wrap up very quickly, but just by summarising that to date we've delivered £81 million worth of projects for you successfully. That is converted into the stats that Joe has just gone over there. There's a long list that you've got on your slide deck from there, from primary schools to affordable housing, quite large scale affordable housing in former East Whitleyburn, which I was on myself actually in my previous role. Hugely successful project for us. Honestly, it was just a great working relationship that we had with all the parties, and a real case study of partnership working, delivering true outputs. We also picked up on the need to talk about the fact that we're not just a builder, we're different to our framework. We're a partnership model that services our public sector authorities that actually own us and support us. We do a range of strategic support services beyond just building facilities. We're helping actively authorities within your region on their net zero route maps. You know, there's a huge amount of activity goes on in my office on that. We look at retrofitting of housing stocks. We've got a live commission with another local authority on look at. It's a challenge. We're all under pressure just now. There's not that much budgets. We have to be realistic. You know, there's a huge amount of challenges in a landscape that we're all dealing with. We have to look at our existing facilities and actually bring the expertise to the table that can help determine and make the right decisions in life when we're doing that. We do a lot of work there and can bring a lot of people very quickly together to do those exercises. We can help. We're very aware of the PFI buyback process and what can be involved in there to assist our participants. And we in the previous elements of Hub, we really focused in on funding applications, business applications funding. We did a huge amount, Sean, I'm looking over at yourself on this, on the local heat network strategy when the housing element really started going. We were behind a lot of that, bringing a lot of supply chain behind us to enable that. But we can really help address the placemaking and net zero route mapping. And it's not just this team, you see, we've got access to specialist consultants, which we pre-screen, tender and bring to the table, who actually are doing this as we speak for other organisations. So in terms of summary, from me, just a takeaway slide is, we generally feel we can partner with you to translate output from your built environment into demonstrable community wealth building output in the form of local jobs, apprenticeships, local spend, and the wider pillars that Joe's just gone over. We've got a strong track record of that. We get standalone people within our team that actually do this day in, day out. The other element of it is we know that we can help you look at decisions about having to retrofit existing estates, etc., alongside new build. That's something that we're very, very focused on. We can help you on the leisure, the education and affordable housing element from there, but all with a strong focus on what this forum is here for today, to look at how we can take it to the next level. Get very clear visions on operating on a very specific South Lanarkshire Council basis, looking at local colleges, education, looking at STEM. There's the opportunity to move away from a project by project basis and move on to a programme, quite joined up with your anchor institutions, and tend to work that way and deliver it that way. I'm very passionate about that, as is the wider team. And from that point of view, we'll stop sharing the slides. I'm aware that they've been circulated, and we'll now hand over to yourself if there's any Q&A from there.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. If anyone wants to ask any questions, could you please indicate now? I've got a few myself, but I think what I'll do, I'll come to some others first. So John Ross is joining remotely. John.
Yes, thanks very much, Joe. I'd just like to thank everyone that's been involved in this report. I found it hugely stimulating. The work that's went into it is fantastic. And I'm also really pleased with the enthusiasm from the officers this afternoon. When we started the community wealth building, this is what it was all about. Local communities, small SMEs, trying to keep the economy in South Lanarkshire, using businesses in South Lanarkshire. And I'm really impressed with the work that you guys have done on this and are continuing to do. And all power to your elbow. Thanks very much for coming along today and giving us such a good report. And anything we can do to help, only too happy to do so. Thanks very much, Joe.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Again, if anyone has any questions, could you please indicate just now, and I'll come round to you. I've got a few, just myself. First of all, I was interested in that kind of point you were concluding with about moving from a project approach to a programme approach. And I assume if they're not taking place, then we'll need to make sure that there are taking place some discussions about what our capital ambitions are in the context, as you quite rightly say, of diminishing budgets. And actually, I'm interested in any reflections that you might have on how we maximise capital spend at a time in which grant is diminishing. That, to me, is like one of the big challenges that we face over the next couple of years. And potentially other routes of leveraging in investment that might not be all that apparent, but don't involve the local government taking on too much of a risk, given events in other local authorities elsewhere. I'm interested in as you were talking through the pillars, I'm actually quite interested, if we boil this down to local SMEs, which and local SMEs typically, the vast majority of them are very, very small businesses. And it would be great for these guys, and they are largely guys, not just guys, but these small businesses to get a fair crack at the whip when it comes to some of these bigger contracts that we expect will be bundled up and handed out by the larger tier one sort of contractors. And subcontracting opportunities. So if I'm assuming that's where the hub clubs come in, and I'm just wondering what your reflections are on success when it comes to actually just getting the smallest of businesses, the 2 and 3 employees or whatever it might be, these very small businesses, of which we actually have a lot in Lanarkshire, who are doing their own version of community wealth building with the relationships they have with each other. But it's daunting when it comes to putting a lot of these people into a public procurement setting. So I'm just curious as to how you think we crack that. And feel free to circulate, by the way, details about Build Lanarkshire, because I think we could cascade that down to our own networks. And I suppose the big thing for me really, in terms of our sort of capital ambitions going forward, is net zero, and it's trying to crack net zero. Frequently spoken about in your presentation, you use that same language around challenges. I think I'm certainly in favour, and in this authority we've certainly been in favour and recently been a lot more direct in that. We're not just talking about challenges, we're talking about commitments that have been made by government for good reasons, for the right reasons, but that aren't credible and are not going to be followed through, are not going to be delivered when the budget or policy suite available to us at this present time. So I wondered if you might be able to elaborate on that and how we rise to those challenges, because I think at some point and certainly the reflections from a number of people in this authority, is at some point there's got to be some accountability to, when it comes to audit, to say that we're making commitments that we know we can't meet. And there's got to be a very honest conversation in this country about how local government and other agencies rise to that net zero challenge when, frankly, budgets aren't coming anywhere near. And we've done work in this authority, particularly in relation to how our non-housing sort of estate, really just to assess how deliverable are some of these targets. So I suppose, I'm sorry, I'm dancing around from the different points that struck me as I was listening to your presentation, but the big thing for me is maximising capital investment in what is really a cold climate when it comes to trying to get some more capital investment into the system. And actually for the public sector generally to be quite honest about what the implications of that are, because if we're not able to bring in the investment in the first place, then we don't get any of the benefits when it comes to sort of building a more resilient local economy. So feel free to take a stab at any of those.
I'll give that a little go. There was, first of all, you've summarised very well what pressures everybody's under. I spend a lot of my time holding forums with my public sector representatives where there is a common theme coming from everyone's reduced budgets. There's declining internal available resources. There's the requirement to get net zero sorted out before you can actually implement. And we, as we say, have tried to set ourselves up to really start to try to go from there. I'm going to attempt to answer that in reverse because that's how quickly I wrote it down from there. But I'm going to take on the net zero point first of all. And that's a huge challenge for all local authorities and health boards and blue lights within the land. We as a group of hubcos, I made reference to 4 other hubcos, we actually got together on this topic a long time ago to say, what can we do to help? Because we're very aware that we need to ensure we help our local authorities, we help South Lanarkshire Council be ready for if and when the climate does change. You know, we're able to press the go button and actually get back to it. The other side of this is I've got a built environment world that we do a huge amount of. These SMEs we deal with, the college network I'm involved in, the lack of pipeline visibility is a complete blocker to these people investing in modern methods of construction and investing in apprenticeships. So we're sitting there saying, yeah, please come and join the built environment. But a lot of the people that actually make the decisions to actually employ these people are the very people you're talking about, the vast volume of SMEs. They need to see better coordination of what's coming down the line so they can invest in modern methods of construction, which shouldn't just be, you know, one-off investments. These are sustained strategic elements from there. So the net zero point of view, we are working very closely with somebody else also involved in Lanarkshire on their net zero approach. And the process we've gone through is we've brought in a sustainability consultant to act within our team. And she sits in on any sustainability concession by the Tertiary Programme Board. So with the view of recirculating lessons learned, because I'm very, very well aware that Hub North, for example, have already been doing this for a year and a half and are very advanced with their thinkings on it. So part of my job role as part of the continuous improvement element is to bring that to the table and say, these were the good, the bad and indifferent things that were done. But in simple terms, it's about doing a stock check, where you are now, where your built environment is going, where your assets that cost money are actually going, making informed decisions. I'll also signpost the fact that 2 of our most successful projects have been refurbishments in the form of a £42 million Mar College and a £20 million Dare Grammar on 2 300-year-old buildings. We can do a wide range of things, from new build to refurb to retrofit. And that needs to really be considered when you're actually looking at your built environment. Let's do the curve, as I call it, about this. We do a heat map of what you've got, what needs to be done when, by who and how, and actually what your investment can get the best output of over the next duration. And that might involve having to take on some big things up front and then having an agreement that you're taking on things sustainably from there. To answer that question properly, I would bring in the sustainability team that we've got, but we are at your disposal to bring these people to the table to do our sustainability check and actually try to get a detailed route to net zero pulled together for you. And I'll give you some level of comfort that yes, every body set a 2030 target, but a lot of people now are setting that at 2045, the realistic target of what they're trying to achieve. from there. So just summarising on net zero, Sean actually has a huge amount that he can bring into this as well, but the net zero element of it is really engaging with experts, looking at where you are now, where you need to go, and making informed decisions. That's it. and accepting and using potentially the territory partnering board that we have to look across the board of where the rest of your counter local authorities are. We're act with a health board that's also local to Lanarkshire, doing a whole system IE where this is a big part of it. There's a lot of knowledge within these elements that we can bring along to get you further down that line. On that particular point, I'm hoping I answered that in part, and I'll move on to the next two, which I've taken down, was the selling Build Lanarkshire. Yeah, we want to do 2 Build Lanarkshires this year. It's a hugely successful programme. It's been going on for a decade. We split it out into our regions to do a Build Ayrshire, Build Lanarkshire, Build Dumfries, because all 3 regions are completely different. Dumfries are totally different climate to Ayrshire, which is a lot about manufacturing and satellites, and Lanarkshire. What you've uniquely got is you've got a huge amount of the SMEs and the people that we actually award work to right in your corridor of where you are. You've got a great college network, you've got a very good STEM set up with the school, so your ask is very different. From my point of view, I almost look as our job role in 2 parts, to answer this properly. We can engage with SMEs that ultimately can go and get work off the line of people you saw me talking about. And to do that, they need to come to our hub clubs and get better at ISO accreditation, insurances, all these things that they need to be able to do, have policies in place for dealing with operating with these organisations. But the Build event also targets SMEs that may well never actually go on to work at that level of doing large-scale jobs, but we're still here to service them. And we've got an brilliant 8-week programme that we actually bring them and take them from their current maturity to a larger maturity so they can even function within the built environment. And it goes back to my bread and butter at the beginning. It's these organisations that are the ones that employ, pound for pound, the most amount of apprenticeships. And these are the people that we're trying to support to say, well, to invest in sustainable sources like electric plant or modern methods of construction. We're doing a huge amount with those amount of people, but we do it because we live within our ecoclimate, within the built environment. So Joe's brought in a huge amount of expertise to actually see how we can position that. And I'll make my last point and then hand over Joe just to wrap up there. But yeah, the programme approach is something I see as very simple, although quite difficult to articulate. That we work with anchor institutions. We work with the DYWs hugely successfully. We work with local schools. We work with local colleges. We work with chambers of commerce. And what we've tried to do is look alongside the local authorities, apologies for your own major input in this, rather than the guilty thing that I think that the industry was poor on 10 years ago, was doing it on a project by project basis. So we let a huge big programme of work. A building contractor comes in to build a £20 million high school, and as soon as that's done, then that support network is taken away. And it's a constant theme I heard. We do it all. We do DEC initiatives, STEM initiatives. We do a lot of good stuff. But what we're trying to do, very simply, is point everybody in the same direction and sign up to a 3-year term to say, right, we need you to do this for the local college. And if you win that job, you have to do your bit. If that housing contractor wins that bit, you have to do their bit. And when you actually listen to the colleges, they're just looking for simple things like people coming in on a quarterly basis to input on the syllabus, to make sure that their course content is correct, to doing things on a more joined up basis rather than just pulling it away project by project. We can act very well at that point to get a programme together and analyse what the needs are and tender on it. And that's the key thing we've got here. When we tender these works, we can get people bought in to ultimately doing these. And another key thing, which I'll refer to Sean on, is we, as a KPI set by the Scottish Futures Trust, we have to ensure that X amount of SMEs are given the opportunity to tender for the work. And that's supported by the hub clubs, our platforms of the hub clubs, build events and meet the buyers. Those are our big things. And the tendering element is really the key thing. I've been with our organisation from the start. I started as a construction manager and worked my way up to ops director and chief exec, and we've gone a huge way in the last 11 years from where we are now. We're very sophisticated, and one of the asks I've got is help from your teams to help us actually with the SMEs to say who can we invite to these bespoke events, etc., and work alongside you. There's other partner organisations that we work with. I know you're very included within the supplier development programme. You know that we need to pull everybody and point them in the right direction is what I'm trying to say on a programme approach. But I feel that I've tried my best to answer the majority of the questions there, but I think Joe, just to give him his place, might have anything else on the SME front, if you feel right.
Yeah, no, thanks, Michael. Yes, so I mean, to develop that point which Michael made on the SME front from yourself, Councillor Fagan, that's something that we are very much aware of in terms of those issues that the smaller SMEs are encountering right across the chain. So this is why we've done this. We've taken a bit of time just to do a bit of a reset and look at the existing build programme and the hub clubs and what we've delivered so far, and say, okay, how is it going to work for our suppliers in the future, and what are the areas where we feel we can maybe develop this and augment it to ensure that we are delivering on those areas. So that's where we are with it just now. So we are working with our partners to really basically reshape this, taking from the kind of quality angle that's kind of been fed back up the chain from the construction teams themselves, looking at the minutiae of it, going down to fire dampening, M&E compliance, issues that we're encountering on site, to ensure that we're giving our suppliers the opportunity to upskill and develop in those areas, but also looking at the wider kind of Scottish ecosystem as well for SMEs. A conversation I had just yesterday actually with Jen Fleming of yourself within procurement. We identified issues that these smaller SMEs are encountering coming to, again, so through Scott Excel and other partnerships or frameworks, not just through the hub model, coming into yourself with the same sort of issues we're identifying, insofar as they maybe don't have the resource to adequately tender for work, or they don't understand the expectations that come through community benefits, through City Deal, for example. These requirements do filter down that chain. So we're working with yourselves at this moment and other partners to pull that together, to create a programme that is going to be fed into the build programme, and also our hub clubs as well, looking at aspects of procurement, for example, whereby we can give the smaller SMEs guidance, insight in terms of what the expectations are, how to tender for work successfully, looking at Construction Line Gold and all the various other accreditations which they need to meet, but also looking at the expectations that are placed on them now with the wider environment, where we see things like community benefits, net zero, all being filtered down to those smaller SMEs as well. So that's something that we're working on just now through those existing supplier development programmes. And again, as Michael touched on as well, I think it is that partnership approach that we're not being selfish about this and saying we want to develop this and keep this in-house for hub. We want to upscale these SMEs so they can go spread their wings and go elsewhere and win work across the territories. But certainly from our perspective, when we're working with yourselves, we want to ensure that that we are that we're building that into our programmes to ensure they are delivering on those kind of key issues. And sorry, I think Michael wants to come back in.
If you forgive me, I've just realised I've not actually answered one of your questions when I was answering. I think Joe's summarising that we really want to partner with your internal teams to maximise the best outputs we can from public sector spend. One element I failed to mention was we've analysed close on £1 billion worth of work. We know where it's been spent. We know who with. We can target the SMEs, the suppliers that supply the SMEs. We've got very good analysis of actually where the money has gone from our stats that we had up on the wall, and that can inform and backfit these strategies. We know where the market is going. There is going to be a huge emphasis on retrofit, having to look at existing assets, having to look at your town regeneration elements. Spend a lot of time with my chair, Dr Willie Mackey, who's chair of Scottish Enterprise, and we know full-heartedly what's coming with the poverty bill and the community wealth building bill, so we're square on the nose, knowing that a lot of these things are going to be about your local high streets, and that creates a different need of supply chain than what we'd put up on the board. And when those things come out, we need to be ready to use those elements there. And the other element that I failed to mention, I'm just going to very quickly summarise, is that one of the key things in managing built environment now is the speed of development. If we take too long in development, you're suffering inflation, and in large scales, £40 million jobs, that can be quite sizable. Sean is a specialist in getting through the development process swiftly, robustly, and following a detailed methodology set by the Scottish Government. But I do sometimes get quite frustrated where I hear different options where people sitting in development for a series of years, and that doesn't help. You have to go in, do an exercise to know what you want to do, and do it succinctly, quickly, and diligently, and not make decisions halfway through that then end up costing a huge amount of money. It's about partner approach up front. From there, I'll stop there.
Listen, thanks, Michael and Sean and Joe, for the presentation. It was just to pick up on something you said earlier on, and it's about development of the pipeline. There's a lot of what you talked about around things like, you know, SME development, the benefits that can happen at the back of that, even through to what you've said, Michael, on speed of thought almost, right, and getting things into action. That can all be helped, and the contribution, the economic contribution, can be leveraged by working collectively and knowing what's coming, right? So that element of planning can greatly help things. Not just necessarily specific to this council, but do you think councils do enough? If you think about the 6 councils you work with, do we do enough in that pipeline development? Because we can analyse the past, but all the new work is going to come through things we initiate. So do you know enough about what we're going to do?
To answer that, I need to go back to the last contractor refresh we did, where we actually sat down very, very diligently with all the local authorities, the Blue Lights, and I'm looking at Sean, who actually led this exercise, and we knew exactly what was coming or what the intention of coming was. But the brass tacks of it was the funding's not there to deliver it now. So to answer your question, no, we don't feel we do see the pipeline, because decisions are having to be made on maturity levels of your net zero obligations, maturity levels of different pressures on local authorities, and that ultimately is meaning that the built environment is having to be cut or redistributed or put off for a period of time. And it goes back to something that the Scottish Futures Trust actually piloted on the website. It's a pipeline predictor tool. We all fed into it, and it was a good exercise, but within months it can be out of date because everybody's running at different paces, different levels. It just goes down to, when we have these build events, a lot of the people just want to know that there is work coming, and if we're gearing ourselves up to be, you know, very specialist in education, leisure, health, you know, we can get supply chain there. But I'm already done huge exercises knowing that we're going to have to look at existing buildings. You heard me out there, we've got very fantastic experience of doing so. And we've got SMEs that could join that pack of people if they knew, all right, okay, we're going to be doing X, Y, or Z over the next 2 to 3 years. I will make decisions within my organisation to target that. So I do feel there is work to be done. And I have to admit, I actually feel that the Territory Partnering Board, which is not chaired by myself, my board is made up by, there's a representative from Scottish Futures Trust and one of the public sector representatives. In this case, it's somebody from Dumfries and Galloway chair it currently. And on my board, I've got somebody from NHS Ayrshire and Arran. So we are, you know, robustly monitored in relation to our methodology. But there's a fantastic opportunity there to get everybody together to talk more and actually say, look, these are the challenges we're up against, and here's what the pipeline. And then Joe can take that intel to feed these programmes you're hearing us talking about. But we've done a huge amount of work just walking around with our, you know, 6 key local authorities saying what's your challenges, what are you up against, how can we help, and we've tried to streamline our offering in that regard. Did that answer that in a way?
The short answer is yeah, right? So it gives me an idea, you know, in terms of where you are on that in your relationship with local authorities. You are absolutely right. Right, if there's no certainty of funding, or if there's certainty of diminished funding, then there's going to be less in the pipeline. It's just maybe that more general point. I think a consciousness on our part and on your part as well about what it, you know, there will still be things feeding through, right? And across that period, are we coordinated enough in letting you know what's likely to come, right? And yeah, I think that's something we'll need to be conscious of as well.
Okay, Josephine.
Thank you. I'm Josephine Pravin Kumar, Director of Public Health, NHS Lanarkshire. So I'm just, you know, very interesting, very helpful presentation. So it was around the stats you presented on page 26 in terms of the current projects delivered and the, you know, jobs or events and things that have happened. So with the constraints we know about, you know, forthcoming constraints, and with the projects that are open, are currently ongoing, do you have a feel for, it's probably similar to what Paul's asked in terms of feel for what might be delivered? Will there be a substantial shift in terms of what has been presented there? So when I look at the numbers, looks small over the number of years. I just wondered whether there is things in the pipeline that might shift that substantially. Thank you.
I'll answer first half of that. But no, thank you. Great question. I can actually see, with the diligence that we're now putting on the table, with how things are being tendered, you know, with a laser focus on employment, local skills and local SME spend, I can actually see, even if there's a decline in what we're playing with, you know, the outputs of them will be high. I need to articulate that we tender our projects not just on cost. We have 80% of our tender is about quality submission, we call it. It's not just quality, it's a written submission, and the baselines are set at a specific local authority basis. So South Lanarkshire has a huge opportunity to come along, work with Joe and actually set up a community wealth building vision that we then tender to our tier 1 contractors to actually fulfil on. And that vision, incidentally, can be used by you for your internal procurement, through any other option, etc. We're actually doing that live with other authorities. But I feel that we are beginning to get going, and I don't think there's a huge appetite from people not to procure locally. The sustainability front on that is actually pushing people to have to use people locally anyway. I think there's a danger if people are not procuring what I'll watch what I say here, my interpretation of, you know, procurement and proper procurement is to ensure that you are giving the SMEs a helping hand to win the work, and we certainly do our fair share, but there is a leakage risk of people not taking that attitude and just going to look at the lowest cost, and that does concern me if people aren't as diligent as we are looking at what we're trying to do. But with the linkages of the college that we've got and the SME element, I generally feel that the apprentice element of it is going to be very successful. I still do get confused about the hours of apprentices, and we've had that discussion many times in the office. But I feel that the pillars that we talked about, how we set our stall out, local employment, SME, winning work and apprentices, are actually going to be more focused from there. But Joe will round that off.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and thanks for the question, Josephine. So, in response, when we look at the statistics that we provided through the previous hub projects in South Lanarkshire, we can evidence kind of journey of maturity there in terms of the development of social value, community wealth building, and the output from those projects. So when we first started using, for example, the social value portal now, I understand not everybody will be kind of au fait with. I know we use multiple different systems for recording and quantifying output. We were looking at across industry average of this kind of social value return on investment of around about 10%, per project value, so that was around about circa maybe kind of 2015 when the SFT and the social value portal started developing the TOMs, and we used that as the measurement tool. To where we are now, when we are averaging around about kind of 25%, social value return on investment through the projects that we're delivering. So we're seeing probably, obviously more of a squeeze in terms of the economic landscape. We very much understand that the onus is on us to ensure that we are maximising every penny that we receive from the public purse that has been reinvested and recirculated through the local economy. So that's kind of reflected in those statistics there, where we can demonstrate that, kind of increased level of maturity, increased level of output through the social value portal and through the various mechanisms that we have to quantify the outputs from our projects. So yes, so it's kind of reflecting on what Michael was saying. We're very much now, kind of centrally, we're looking at every single project we procure. How can we really maximise the social value, the community wealth building through, working with our partners to ensure that the SMEs and the local, the territory employers are really, kind of front and centre of that, to ensure that we are keeping that money there. We're working in partnership. So instead, when maybe in the past, the industry, could be a bit more au fait with things, and they could, have touch points here and there. It's really important that we are, developing robust programmes of social value to ensure that that's how we're maximising that return on investment. So working with local authorities, working with existing providers, the anchor institutions, and that sort of joined up regional approach, which Michael referenced earlier on, that enables us to have that sort of wider relationship with these organisations to ensure that we are maximising that opportunity, as opposed to maybe in the old days where it might have been a more transactional project by project basis. So yes, it's obviously, you know, it's a challenge in terms of, you know, there's less work coming through. You know, how do we ensure that we maximise that, and we really are on top of that. So hopefully we can continue to develop most of the stats, and you know, if we're sitting in front of you another 10 years down the line, you know, it's going to look very healthy indeed. But obviously we can only deal with what's in front of us at the moment, and we really are geared up to ensure that everything is maximised from the social return investment point of view. So hopefully that kind of answers that as well. But again, happy to share some further, you know, kind of background evidence, and you know, paint a bit of a kind of clearer picture on that if that's something you want to take up offline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I think there are maybe a few conversations following on from the meeting that would be useful to follow up on. But I'm conscious of the rest of our agenda and the limited time we have available. So can I just thank everybody that's presented today? I'm sure we will make sure that we're following up on all the relevant conversations. I'm particularly interested in promoting the kind of hub clubs in particular to local firms. So thanks very much for attending. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, can I come now to item 4, which is on the community wish lists, and can I invite Jen Kerr to speak to this report. Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. I'm Jen Kerr, the Community Engagement Manager at South Lanarkshire Council, and I'm providing this report today to just provide the Commission with a bit of information and a bit of an update on the development progress of the community wish list. And after the previous presentation, I think I'm going to start with, this is the smallest beautiful part of economic development. Our numbers aren't as big, but they're equally as valuable and as impressive. So the community wish list is an opportunity for suppliers of all sizes and ranges, local and national ones, to participate in supporting local communities in some of their own identified priorities. So we ask communities to come forward with things that organizations and suppliers can donate to their communities, things they need for their projects. And we match this up with offers of suppliers as well. We started and launched this a year ago in partnership with our procurement team. Jen works really closely with us. Gets a bit confusing with the two Jens. And it's been a year in development. And we have a post in place in the community engagement team, which supports the communities to make wishes, to break them up properly, to explain them properly, and also works with the suppliers when they get in touch through the procurement team often, but actually sometimes just in our own travels and communities. We don't ever miss an opportunity to encourage someone to contribute to the wish list. We're bringing these people together through a single point of contact and a person to kind of support and develop those wishes. So in the first year, you'll see in section 4 there, we've had quite a bit of success, but actually it's exploded since this report was written. So since I can say now, by the end of February, we've actually had 123 wishes registered rather than the original number there. 15 have been withdrawn because they've maybe found alternative versions for those resources. We've answered 33 of them, and the value is already at £26,300 and £26,300 and some change. So it's really great to see items of being recycled into the environment, kitchen items, new things being bought, professional services being delivered, and just matched up because it was easy to do so and someone was able to support and move that along. We are working regionally with the city region to develop a web-based community benefit interface that will fit in and work with Cenefits. This is in development. We're going to actually have our first meeting on Thursday coming. There was one in January, but we needed to cancel it because that tender wasn't quite ready for procurement. So it's about to go out. And we're involved in that, and to see if we can add some automation into this. At the moment, the wish list is just hosted on the council's website. We're only hosting wishes, but we're also responding to offers. So, like I said, this process supports the development of wishes as well as the development and the introduction of suppliers. We've seen our staff out at business mornings in the local business bureaus and out in the community and interacting with small donations to big ones. We've got people donating towels to and toiletry supplies to domestic violence charities on an ongoing basis. We've got regular grant donations, small grants of money that make a big difference. We've had guitars, we've had defibrillators, one which has saved a life already, and what kind of value can we place on that? having a council contact as a point of contact for both the communities and the suppliers has been fed back by both sides as really, really valuable and helpful to make people feel comfortable getting engaged. And really what we see ourselves as doing is just brokering relationships that are being sustained. And we found some of the smaller businesses actually then come back to us and ask if they can do more. They've enjoyed it so much. They've enjoyed getting to understand those communities, getting to know the activists and the people and the community volunteers in them. And are there other communities they can do some of their work in? And they make new offers. Quite a few enthusiasts within that and within the smaller and local businesses, but also some of the bigger ones coming through the procurement supply chains. The service is promoted through the benefits, community benefits sort of offer through the procurement process. The community wish list is one of the things that that suppliers can choose as part of their tendering process. And again, this is going to be worked into Senefits through this new platform that we're just working to develop regionally. So yeah, I think it's those community connections that are probably the most important. And I would say that we've now been in development for 1 year. That year is coming to a close, and we're looking at ways to maintain and a variety of options to maintain the service going forward, and the best way to do that, whether we need to continue with a staff member, whether it can be automated and online, what the value of those relationships are. So we value your input and welcome your comments on the way we should take this really great service forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Jen. Can I ask if there are any questions or comments? Could you please indicate now? I'm going to come to John Ross. John.
Yes, thanks very much, Joe. And I thank Jen very much for her report. I'm quite surprised at the response it's had. Delighted, nevertheless, but I was quite surprised. I wasn't sure it would be just as successful. Just a couple of comments. I'm not sure if I've got it right or not, but see at item 7.1, it says the temporary contact will end on the 30th of June 2023. Should that be 2024? That's the first comment. And then secondly, because of the work that's been done, the good work that's been done to achieve this, I would hope that we would find some way to continue with this post going forward. I know that there's talk about trying to find other ways to go forward as well, but I think there's nothing better than somebody on the ground interacting with local communities to try and increase this, and it seems to have the right effect. So I would certainly be hoping that we'll try and find some way to continue with this post. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to bring in Tom Little to respond to that question. Tom.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Ross. Two very legitimate questions there. The first one, hands up, yes, that's a typo. The former proofreader in me is very disappointed with himself. Apologies for that. It should be 2024, as you point out. In terms of the probably more important point about the post going forward, this has been, I would say, a real good success story for our communities. The different ways that Jen described, the way it's worked, the way it's brought communities together, it's created relationships between the companies that are working for us in the area and the communities that we all serve. Even things like the way it contributes in some ways, some small ways towards the sustainable transition because of the reuse of some equipment, etc. It's all just good stuff, and we've taken a lot of pride in demonstrating the success stories through our media channels as well as part of that. So it's not something that I certainly want to see leave us. I think it's something that's working really well. We are looking at ways of delivering this going forward, whether that's a particular post or different ways of delivering this. Jen did mention the fact that there's the city region is looking at a kind of combined software for this. It may not deliver entirely what we need. We will still need some reasonably heavy officer input to this if we're to continue it. But I would say is just kind of watch the space. We are working on a way of taking this forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I come back, Chair?
On you go, yeah.
It was just to say that we will have some resolution and some ideas coming forward before this finishes on the 30th of June. We will be bringing someone forward to a committee.
maybe going to come back to Tom just to clarify that. So we'll have some resolution to it, but it might not require a committee decision, I think, is the message that's been relayed to me. But I'm just going to ask Tom to clarify that. Thanks.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, we will bring updates. Those updates are unlikely to tell you that we're stopping this work, put it that way, Councillor Ross. I mean, we're obviously there's a balancing act to be done here. This is not statutory work for us. It's something that we want to do and we think is very valuable, and we will seek to continue to do it. And as I say, we'll bring updates to you and let you know what's happening.
Right, okay. Could I come now to Josephine again?
Thank you. Just a quick one, just in terms of the other businesses, are we satisfied it's the reach is as wide as it could be? And also in terms of people who might not have the, you know, are how much are people knowing about the list and being able to access it? Is there more work needing to be done around it? Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if Jen or Tom, Jen, do you want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So it is embedded in the procurement menu of options for anyone providing a tender. So anyone interested in tendering for a piece of work will go through that list with our procurement team to look at the range of things that they could put into their tender as part of, so they sometimes can choose something bigger as well as something small from the wish list. So they're often going, oh yeah, we can do that anyways. Likewise, we're promoting as much as we can to local business networks and through local business networks. And I have a community development team that are out in communities and neighborhoods, and they are all aware of the benefit of the list, and honestly never miss an opportunity to bring anything useful together for a community resource. So we're doing our very best, and like Tom was noting, we are publicizing almost every single actual wish that's granted, because the human interest stories behind them are really great. And even the businesses themselves are promoting it for us because they find it so satisfying and they get so much from doing it. So a lot of them have, recommended to a friend as well. So again, until we are certain about its future and how it's going to operate, we'll definitely continue to promote that, because it's just a good thing, and it kind of promotes itself once you've been involved with it.
Right, thank you very much for that. I don't see any other questions, so can we just note that report, and we'll move on to item 5, which is a town centre update, and Ian Ross is going to speak to this report. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, excuse me. As the report says, it's an update. We've brought at least 2 or 3 reports to the Commission previously, so it's not intended to cover everything that we're doing in town centres, really just to bring it up to speed from where we were. I think it was the 5th of September last year that we brought a paper, and at that point we had highlighted the work in East Kilbride around the preparation of the master plan, which was just completing at that point. Starting on the similar journey in Hamilton in terms of the master planning, and just a brief update on the place-based investment programme, which is, I'm going to do them in reverse, so that's now approaching the end of year 3 of a 5-year programme. We are we're committed. We've got all the funding committed for year 4, and year 5 remains available for new projects coming forward. In terms of the report itself, section 3 just touches on some of the background that people will be very familiar with across our communities. I don't speak to anybody that doesn't want their town centre to be in place and to survive and thrive, but we're clearly using them in very different ways, and therefore there's a lot to be done to keep them sustainable. But I'll not spend too much time on that, given, as the Chair said, we've been through a lot in the session already. So turning to section 4, just an update on Hamilton Town Centre. And again, I'm going to keep these relatively brief. In the full briefing sessions we've done for Hamilton East Kilbride, they're probably at least an hour-long session each, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll hopefully pitch it about right in terms of the time I spend on it, but please feel free to ask any questions as we get there. So in your pack, starting at page 45, it gives an overview of or a summary of the master plan work that's been carried out. The report talks you through the process that we've done. So 360 Architecture were appointed through the normal procurement routes, and just by coincidence, that's the same team that delivered the Hamilton master plan. We've had a pretty intense 6-month period to get through the work that we've done, and the information in your pack, as I say, starting at page 45, talks you through some of the methodology around that, a bit of a familiarisation with Hamilton for those that are not so familiar with the town, given a little bit of a history at page 48, and some more of the processes as we go through. When we get to page 51, that starts to drill into some of the key interventions that we're looking at across areas of the town that people will hopefully be familiar with in terms of the New Cross Centre, Regent Shopping Centre, the former Bears Department Store, the Quay Street Car Park, Duke Street Car Park, and the police station site. Each of the next section of slides touches on how we see these interventions moving forward. So the first one being New Cross Centre. I should have said it, and as it touches on the 4.3, the master plan vision is a 15-year plus horizon. So when we're looking at this, we've given the team a free rein to say, you know, don't look at ownership, don't look at current constraints. We need to look at what the right solutions over those kind of time frames are, and how we would move forward on that. So New Cross Centre doesn't have a lifespan of that duration. So the plan shows the centre being removed and replaced with a residential-led development. The street in the middle, which essentially follows the line of the current mall, was a former street within the town centre known as Chapel Street. So the hope and intention would be to reintroduce that within the streetscape, but retaining active uses at ground floor, and you'll see a consistency throughout the slides that the yellow colour shows where we see opportunities for active ground floor, and we particularly use that phrase rather than retail. This is not just about retail within the town centres, as we've touched on. It's about that whole diversification of use, and then a range of different house types within these residential-led developments. So a couple of different sizes of flatted developments and some indicative townhouse developments there. So on New Cross, it's showing approximately 80 residential units that could be developed out there. And again, throughout all of this, the consultation with colleagues across the council has been considerable. And you know, Jonathan and the team in housing, we've spoken to them at length around where social housing may fit in within these proposals. I think it's fair to say that would be extensive, and New Cross is perhaps one of those sites that would be very much at the forefront of that. Moving on then to Regent Centre, again, a failing shopping centre, unfortunately, something that we see consistently across the country. Say 360 Architecture involved in a lot of towns, but if you know town centres across Scotland, you will know that you can start in Ayr, go up through Paisley, Clydebank, Dumbarton, Falkirk, Hamilton, East Kilbride, Cumbernauld. The list is endless of towns in the country where covered shopping malls are failing commercially, and alternative uses are being brought forward. So the proposals are that Regent Centre would be removed in its entirety, and there's a couple of visuals there as to the type of environment we would aim to create. Again, showing there about 350 units with the same key for the mix of uses, with the only addition being on that top right-hand corner, some later living, which is another area that's short in the town centre. But again, if you know the town centre, it's in close proximity to the McCarthy Stone development, close to the tennis club, excuse me, sorry, which has been very successful and popular within the town. Moving into a couple of the kind of key buildings within the town centre, when we did the strategy and action plan back in 2018, the public were very clear that Baird's, the former Baird's Department Store was one of, if not the key site that they wanted to see a solution to. In the interim, it was bought by Witherspoons, and they had great intentions to develop out one of their own units within the building. COVID and the changes in that leisure market have meant that they are no longer progressing with that. So we're now looking at how that can be included within that residential-led redevelopment, but recognising that that will always remain a key focal point within the town centre, being on the corner of the Top Cross and Quarry Street. What this slide also shows, and again reflecting on the guy's comments earlier about retaining rather than removing buildings, and how that links in with some of the statutory obligations around NPF 4 and the carbon agenda. We have shown what it would look like were it to be reprovisioned. We've shown what it would look like in kind of meanwhile uses, but I think on balance we feel that the removal of that building is where we're likely to end up. Moving on now at page 55, we've shown a similar exercise with the M&S store. It's again a building that could potentially be retained, but just looking at the layout and configuration of the building, it's challenging to see a long-term use with that. So again, on balance, we're looking at that coming back into residential use with around 40 units, but being again another one of those key focal points within the town centre. As I only half joke about, you can't have a conversation about town centres without talking about car parking. So at page 56, we touch on the Duke Street car park, which is a building very much of its age. It's showing signs of wear and tear. It's a concrete structure. It's been up for 50, 60 years, and it's not going to last with the lifespan of this master plan. So removing the existing car park, replacing it with another multi-storey car park, but in a more a tighter configuration, which gives the opportunity for pedestrian and green transport network through the site, linking down into that avenue on the line of the old Regent Centre Mall, but building it in such a way that it creates much more future-proof use. Most car parks, multi-storey car parks, the floor-to-ceiling heights don't lend themselves to alternative use. The intention would be that this would be much more flexible, so that if there was less of a need for car parking, it could be switched over. Finally, I think, a couple more slides, Quarry Street itself, the kind of main traditional thoroughfare within Hamilton, it's a conservation area, many listed buildings, so we're not proposing much in the way of intervention there, other than to try to improve the green network within the town centre. Hamilton is very well served in its surrounds with green areas, but the town centre itself doesn't perform terribly strongly on that front. And the final slide is the town square itself, which has the opportunity to introduce a real meaningful green space to the town centre, which will hopefully increase people's dwell time within the town centre. The last slide really just pulls all that together in a kind of annotated way, and I appreciate, that has been an incredibly fast canter through, but again, I'm happy to pick up on any questions as we get there. So, moving on through the rest of the report, East Kilbride, we got to a similar point with East Kilbride in September, October last year. We've been through the public consultation on East Kilbride, which has been a very positive exercise. We took a shop unit within the town centre, and we estimate that we had between 3,500 and 4,000 people through the door in the 3 weeks that was open. We had close on 1,000 feedback forms completed, which we've been able to analyse, and the website had in excess of 7,500 hits on it. So I think it's from a community engagement point of view, I think that's been a good measure of success. The responses have generally been very positive, generally focusing on some of the detail, and in other words, not the kind of whether or not the principles are right, but what next. Where we're at now, we're into the enabling part of that. So there's a lot of conversations, as it were, behind the scenes, a lot of commercially sensitive conversations, but that trajectory is still moving forward very well, and we look to be providing updates through the normal committee structure in the relatively near future, you know, the next 6 months or thereabouts. Section 6 talks about Rutherglen Town Centre. We've recently completed the draft strategy and action plan, which was approved by committee in December. Again, on starting on pages 61 in your pack, you'll see a summary of that document and the outcomes of that. You'll hopefully remember through previous commission meetings that we've been working with the Improvement Service and the Shaping Places for Wellbeing initiative, who gave a presentation to the Commission. That's very much shaped the work in terms of that placemaking within Rutherglen and informed how the strategy and action plan has come together. We're moving into the consultation stage on that as well. And you'll probably pick up the dates, the target dates at the end of the document. We're slightly behind on those, but we should be out for the consultation in the very near future. Lanark Town Centre, the Lanark bid has just gone through its reballot exercise, and they've got a resounding success in their ballot process, in excess of 75%, which in a bid ballot is a very, very strong mandate. So that gives them the opportunity to plan for another 5 years and work very closely within that community and provide that vital link between the community and perhaps some of the more strategic work we do. And then at section 8, we touch on town centre living. I mean, you'll see from what's in the pack, reintroducing or introducing more town centre living to all our towns is key. These are the kind of larger, more obvious ones, but again, working with Jonathan and the team in housing, there are a number of opportunities that are being identified across the patch just to support and underpin the work around the delivery of the SHIP. Before I hand back to the Chair, sorry, what I should have touched on, apologies, back in Hamilton, we prepared this, it's been approved by committee, we've consulted with senior colleagues, we've been through various political representatives. We are now starting the public consultation from Tuesday next week, and we'll be in the Regent Centre for 3 weeks. Well, sorry, we're in the Regent Centre, we're in Sainsbury's, and we're in Asda, because that's where the people are, for a 3-week period, and the online consultation will be open for 6 weeks, and obviously hope to get a similar level of consultation and hopefully positive response from the community of Hamilton. So apologies, that was all a bit of a quick canter through. There's an awful lot in terms of the work that we're doing, so if that's okay, Chair, I'll maybe pass back to you for any queries.
No, that's quite all right, Ian, and I'm very aware that there have been much more in-depth reports to local members, to area committees, community and enterprise, so there have been lots of opportunities for people to ask questions on that, but thanks for updating the Commission. Are there any questions further to that anyone has at this point? I'm not seeing any, so if that's the case, thank you very much, Ian. Can we move on to the next item, which is item 6, which is about the Community Wealth Building Progress Group's terms of reference. Tom is going to speak on that report. Tom Little.
Thanks, Chair. So this report brings an updated terms of reference for the Progress Group. It's already been endorsed by the Progress Group itself, chaired by Stephen, who's with us today. In a nutshell, when the Commission approved the establishment of this multi-partner Progress Group in October 2021, it was agreed it would meet initially every 8 weeks, and the idea was to kind of kick-start the work that was needing to be done and the relationships that were necessary between the partners to enable it to happen. The feeling now is that now the work is more embedded in all the partners' practices, it's felt the progress group's activities can be adjusted to kind of reflect more the meeting programme for the Commission itself. So that would be 4 times a year, and as that's laid out as in the revised terms of reference that are at the appendix for this report, which is for noting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? If not, can we agree that report? We are agreed. We'll move now to item 7. Tom, this is back to you just to draw our attention to the meetings timetable for the year ahead.
That's exactly it, Chair. The proposed meetings are laid out at 3.2 in this report. It's just a case of check your diaries, please, and let us know if there's any problems. Thanks.
Okay. Can I ask if anyone wants to come in at this point, and if not, can we approve the dates listed in the recommendations in the report? Not seen any dissents. We'll agree that and move to item 8, which again is the forward programme for future meetings. Tom, it's back to you, but I think it is just a case of noting what's in the appendix. But like I said, you want to add?
That's exactly it, Chair. The forward programme's in the appendix in full. I'd say it's a pretty healthy looking programme at the moment, but we are always open to further ideas for reports that the Commission might want to hear and learn from. Thanks.
And if there are any suggestions, I would advise you to email them either to myself or to the clerk or to our officials, and we will consider that ahead of future meetings. Are there any questions for Tom on that paper? Not seen any questions, so we'll note that report. There are no items of urgent business, and so I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you.